Maybe by the time I was 10, I started to have what I called one of those days. And it was always, I just wake up in a different state. And that was very much a unitive state. I just wake up and I would just be staring at things because I could feel somehow something about me in some of those flowers or that pot, or were like intimately connected. I could just...
What was it like for you just growing up as an everyday kid? What were your interests? What was your family life like?
Somebody asked my dad once when he was at some event, on a break, like, so what was Adya like when he was a kid? And he said, he came in smiling. And I did. Like, I was a happy kid. Of course I had my challenges and difficulties like everybody does, but, and from one standpoint, I was an odd kid, and one from standpoint, a very normal kid. I relentlessly, roller skated, and then I skateboarded, and then I unicycled, and I bike raced, and then I started running and doing ultra marathons. And like most kids, I even noticed when I was a kid, like most kids would go out and play their skateboard for a little while. When I got into skateboarding, I would want to see how far can I perfect this? And I would be the kid that I would be able to 7-8 hours a day just for the pure fun of it. And then each thing I would get into, the thing for me was like, what's the boundary? And that same thread, when I got into spirituality, it was just, this is an edge exploration. This is except there's no end to this edge, right? This is like the ultimate, spiritual version of mountaineering up a mountain that doesn't have a top. Like, how cool is that?
All right.
Yes.
What I want to understand more about is, as a young boy,
Yeah.
what were your early intuitions, if you will, that there was more going on, if you had such intuitions?
Yeah.
Were there any early signs to you of something like unitive consciousness, or something bigger than we normally think is going on for little children?
Yeah, there was. By the time I was 10, I started to have what I called one of those days. And it was always, I just wake up in a different state. And that was very much a unitive state. I just wake up and I would just be staring at things because I could feel somehow something about me in some of those flowers or that pot, or were like intimately connected. I could feel it, and I had to discipline myself because I'd go to school. And for some reason, when I was in one of those days, I would be very attracted to like really looking at people, because I could feel through their eyes was like the doorway that I could feel that connection. I could just see it. But I realized pretty quickly, like, it kind of freaks people out to look at them too closely, especially a 10-year-old to a 10-year-old. So I was like, okay, I got to kind of conceal it a little bit on those days. And then within a day, sometimes 3 or 4 days, it would last. And then it would just disappear as quietly and simply as it appeared. Comes out, and then I wake up the next day, I'm a little boy.
So when would you say your conscious spiritual quest, if you will, began as a person, where you said, oh, this is important to me, I'm going to focus on this?
Probably at about 20 years old.
And what was going on? What happened?
Oh, well, I picked up a book by Alan Watts. And it was a book about Zen and enlightenment, and had all these koans and stories, and none of which I could really understand. But I'm reading this book, and the whole time, even though I'm not understanding it, but in my head, meanwhile, down from my neck down in my body, like something's just like, yes, it's just like vibrating with, there's something here that's not only important, but it's true, but I don't know what the heck it is. It was literally the next day. It was one of the more dramatic moments in my life. So I'm reading this book, and I wake up the next day, and I felt like, this is going back for some people, but the old movie in the 80s or 90s, Alien, where there's an alien in this woman's chest, and they cut the chest, and there's a little baby, you know. And I felt like there's something in me. I literally went around for years saying to myself, what is this in me? What happened? I read a book, and all of a sudden, like, something's in me that wasn't there. And so powerfully that I knew the entire course of my life had somehow just shifted. I thought it was going to be about one thing. It's going to be about something totally different. And all I did was read this little book. And like, something exploded inside of me that I didn't understand. That was the beginning. That was the beginning. And bless my mom's heart, I remember going to her as like a 20-year-old and still living with my parents, and I was telling her about this, and I just said, like I'm saying to you, like, Mom, but my whole life trajectory is different. Nothing's gonna be the way I thought it was. And I asked her years later, like, why didn't you freak out? Why didn't you freak out? And she just said a very curious thing. She just said, you know, I trusted you. I just trusted you, that whatever was going on for you, that it was what you said it was. It was important to you, and it was real to you. And she said, I didn't really need to know anything more than that.